success and individual benefit of its token holders.
Cool, thanks. I guess one great checking question would be, um, how is everyone feeling the with how empty the space and the TC is feeling now? With everyone in vacations, and that, we were just talking about that before everyone entered. And, I feel like that's probably a great question to ask. Um, I don't know if you want to go first, CryptoSec.
Oh, yeah, sure. I don't really have much to say on it because that kind of my main participation in the TEC is during this one Sampo call once a week, so I haven't really noticed that that it felt empty. So yeah,
That's cool, I guess, or more like, in the whole crypto space, because I know that's sort of the general sentiment.
are a lot of people on vacation now? I haven't really noticed any emptiness.
Well, it may be. I have felt that, at least in the projects I sort of look after, but well, that's cool. Do you want to pass it to someone?
Yeah, sure. I pass it to Iron.
Yeah, I think because I joined mid-July too, I didn't really see DC in its most active form and time, but I'm super excited for that time to come actually. Um, so yeah, looking forward to that. And I'll pass it to Nate.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen the TEC be extremely busy, where there's no way you can keep up with what's going on. So right now it feels extremely dead, and that goes for all the other projects as well. Even when it comes to Gnosis or um, Common Stat, like it's really kind of a slow index co-op. It's really slow too. There's a lot of people taking vacations and relaxing, and so that's fine. We'll see how it comes back. I also think there's a lot of uncertainty in the air, so I think we just got to curb it and keep doing what we're doing, keep building, and keep moving forward. So I'll pass them on.
Thanks, Nate. It's it's interesting upon rereading the mission. Uh, the part that says that it aligns the microeconomy with the TC mission and the collective success and individual benefit of token holders, but particularly that last part, the collective success and individual benefit of token holders. It seems to me that um, there's a tension between the collective, um, like the common benefit, and the individual, like, income of people. So I think we haven't found the right way to reconcile the tension between the two, because we are either advancing token engineering through the funding of projects, or we are providing secure employment for the contributors. So that is something that is on everyone's minds, and I am channeling or embodying my inner Mitch, because I think we need to be more critical about this process. We were extremely positive once upon a time, and that got us where we are right now. So that's what I have to say. I'll pass it to Bear.
Thank you, Manu. Yeah, it's been really quiet. I've noticed, like, calls not really happening, and some of the calls that are happening, just like few people attend to what it used to be, like some months ago. So that's interesting. I wouldn't say it's good or bad. It's just, the situation that we have right now. But at the same time, for me, it's like super exciting and motivating. For example, coming here to the Sampo call, even though Gideon wasn't able to join, that we're still able to make it happen, and to keep moving forward with the Sampo initiatives. I think that should be kind of like the path towards the TEC should be moving, right? Like not really depending on individuals, on individual like people or names, but just like in this collective effort that everyone is pushing forward. And doesn't matter if some people are on vacation, but there's always people willing to keep working and keep contributing. So yeah, that's something nice for me. um Rex, welcome. I pass it to you. The question right now is, how are you feeling with the TEC being not as active as it used to be?
It's an interesting question, right? Because, well, maybe I haven't been here at the peak of activity. I'm not sure because I joined in like March, April time, right? I'd say specifically now there's a lot of people in Burning Man, right? So activity has stalled to probably the lowest point it's going to be in the year. But it even with you know a sizable chunk of people gone, the TC is still progressing in many aspects. Maybe not in all of them because the frequencies had to be reduced. Say rewards isn't meeting at all. But the DAO still exists, right? Well, the commons still exists. So yeah, I'd say I don't have like a super strong opinion of it. I feel like it's I wouldn't say that the that the TC would be able to sustain this. So say if all of the people that are currently gone are gone forever, will the is the system as it stand resilient? Yes, but will the current kind of working groups all go back to strength? No. So I don't know. And who's not spoken yet?
I think I'm the only one left. Um, well, I like the adverse point and or like how Bear was optimistic about the situation. I've been thinking that well, this inactivity is due to main reasons. First of all, is summertime and a lot of people is on vacation, but also we've had for obvious reasons of financial stress and whatnot, we have made a lot of changes in a lot of working groups. We have reduced the overall spendings of the TEC, and that means that there's also people that were contributing back then that's probably not contributing anymore. Um, but I'm happy and I'm also optimistic on on how this means an opportunity and how there's like we were talking. I remember and we were talking about Edu and how he got a job and probably his experience here in the TC made a difference. And I don't know if looking at that way, I feel sort of lucky that that I am here and I have the opportunity to make an impact and to learn a lot because I entered the TC February or March and I have learned an incredible amount of stuff here and I look forward to keep learning and just keep advancing and just doing what we do. Okay, so Yeah, Nate.
No, I just wanted to add on to that because I wanted to make a point that if you look in the Token Engineering Academy Discord right now, there's a study group going on with about around 15 people that are just getting ready for token engineering education. And like I even though if we have a drop off in people, DAOs have this kind of natural ability to recycle individuals in and out over and over again. And we have a really good pipeline set up to make all of this work. And so I just, I want to make sure we keep a positive attitude when it comes to going through these transitions and organizational changes. So I just want to throw that out there as well. But go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So there's not too much. We really didn't prepare an agenda for this. But I've been wanting to talk about the token gate for some time now. So for those who may not know, we already have the token gated channel in place. That there's a section called TEC token holders with a channel that has a bot message to join the channel that's going to verify that you have at least one TEC, and then one channel where Richa has been posting regular updates and information that we consider is um, useful or interesting to token holders. So we've been taking sort of a really low key approach to that. um you know, really, like, we haven't made any efforts on just promoting the token gated channel and getting people outside Sampo or the core contributors here at the TC join it. And I was wondering if anyone had any ideas or how, or like, I think it's about time that we open it up for various reasons. One, I think it's the perfect time to get more feedback and get more people involved, and especially now with people being away, and we are not having as much influx of people on the community. So it may be a great time to just promote it. I don't know if in the orientation call or having, I don't know how guides work. I don't know if they have like uh, I don't know if they have like a certain document or guidelines that they follow when they approach people, but just trying to get more people in the door of the token gated channel may be great. And here, I guess I will open the floor to any ideas or comments about that.
I
Um.
agree.
Oh, sorry, Rex. Go ahead.
Oh no! All I was gonna say is that um, it would make kind of sense to give some time to the working groups or try and get the other stewards to like spend 10 minutes on it, or if some of us go there and can push the message over to them, and our comms gonna help us out with this as well.
Yeah, I think it's great that we have Manu and Arim here, that they work with communities in the comms group. So I guess any opinions on that, or like what do you think may be the best way to go for it and promote the channel?
I have some concern in this regard, that I've been wanting to share, and that I'm not sure what's like the best way or what you guys think. Yeah, I think like Manu and Irem and probably Costa too would have like an opinion about this. Personally, I find a little confusing that we kind of have like different places that are like similar in terms of their purpose. With what I mean is like, for example, we have like the weekly updates on the forum, and then we also have like the newsletter, and now we have like this token gated channel, but we also have like the announcements channel in the community, and we also have like the general channel in the community. And I think it was on the general chat, or in the announcements chat, I can't remember, but like a couple of days I just saw like a message from someone that oh, here I just found it, from Gil Royale. He's saying like, I am sorry, but do you guys even realize how broad the ping is when using like add everyone? I wish there was like add enthusiasts, like kind of like making um, this point of how do we use like tags for people. And yeah, I kind of felt the same, like sometimes like the add everyone, it feels like it's really broad for everyone, and you might not be really interested in what's happening there. So I guess what I'm saying is that maybe we could find some type of a strategy to focus more like this effort, and I guess like the token gated channel could help on this in a way, and kind of like unify efforts, and yeah, like fix the roles and that kind of stuff. I don't know, what do you guys think?
I fully agree. Also, how do you get rid of the new member tag? Because I I keep on getting like weekly
Yeah,
pings
same.
for
Yes,
orientation.
we'll fix that with Edu actually next week. We'll work on the tax situations and we'll do something about the newcomer. I didn't realize that actually so many people are still under the tax. So for example, I tagged newcomer today, but Edu just let me know of that. So we'll work on that next week. But yeah, Bear, I agree with a lot of the things you said, and especially with token gated channel. In terms of promoting it, I think that's such a good point, NT. But what was I thinking also? Like, do we need to maybe specify and kind of be a little bit more, have a little bit more consensus on the use case we really want to get out of the token gated channel first before really going on a Twitter or our different community channels and really promoting this? Because I know like with the content curation service, and still it's being worked on its first iteration with DAO Stack and Tangible AI. So there's already a team going on in there, and we're thinking maybe integrating content, the token gated channel into that content curation service, and actually like putting the curated content in the token gated channel. So having one of the use cases of token gated channel being the gardens or the curated platform for the service itself. So yeah, I feel also a little bit confused, thinking, do we start promoting this? Do we have a really consensus and a plan of where we want this to go? Should we wait a little bit and see how the content curation service is moving and whether they're going to move together, or do we look at them as two separate initiatives right now? But I think this is a good topic to discuss again, maybe next week when Gideon is here too. Yeah, I think these are all I wanted to say.
I have a further question, but I guess this is going to come more than to us, and it's kind of feeding off of what you said. Um, is there a content management kind of a wholesome content, like holistic content management strategy already in the TEC, or is this an opportunity for us to take a look at that and streamline our processes, both for the this new token gated channel and our existing channels?
I mean, I definitely think so. Maybe Manu and Enti can speak further on this, as especially now different communication working groups are unifying kind of. And yeah, no, we definitely talked about this. I think this content curation service and also the token gated channel, they will push us to get better with community engagement, both on Twitter and really create coming up with more streamlined content management strategies on Twitter and other accounts really, um, to organize around these two initiatives, I think is such a great opportunity. In terms of content management strategy, I don't know, Manu, I think you would have more to say on this. What do you think?
Before you go, Manu, just one quick interruption. I wonder if there's anything else that we want to talk about. I just want to make sure that we manage the time. I don't know if Nate is like if there's any update on the treasury or anything else that we can add. If not, we can.
Yeah, no, I mean, Treasury is still in the works with talking with Gnosis and seeing what we can do about that 57,000 TEC. If they can't give me any type of solid response in the next few days, then I'm going to go ahead and post the first investment strategy on the forum for advice process, and we'll just keep moving forward with the changes. So that's the only update I have.
Okay, cool.
Outside of that, I think the conversation that we're having right now is really, really important and really good. And as far as a formal CMS Rex, I don't think we've ever had one. We have tech source and our Gitbook page, but that's about it. Yeah.
Thanks. Go ahead, Manu.
Yeah, as far as content management system, I'm actually working on something. I've been trying to get at it for a while, but the developer I was working with had a family emergency, and I left the project. Disappeared, uh, but I've found another one who can help me. So, as far as content management system, the idea that I have is creating a Twitter scraping bot. For those of you that don't know, Nate is aware of this. He wanted to do. I mean, I've been again trying to do this for a while now. But the idea is doing mining tweets from influential people within the token engineering community. There can be several flavors to it. It can be Web3. It can be there can be a subset of that that's pretty specific. That's token engineering. I mean, think Michael Sargam, Kelsey Navin, Jeff Griff, as well as the organizations too. So doing mining of all the tweets that they release, how popular they are. Of course, we'll have some. There will be ways to try to prevent that we get information from bots or that we get inflated statistics from people who buy likes or buy followers, etc. But the idea is putting your finger on the pulse or the zeitgeist of token engineering, and based on what they are talking about, the topics that they're talking about, the topics that get the most traction, the most engagement on Twitter, crafting content based on that. So Medium articles, tweets, agenda points, issues on GitHub, things like that, so that we can understand what is being talked about holistically
That's
and
quite interesting.
space. Yeah.
But
And
that's the token curate the content curation system. Oh, by the way, I've used the Twitter API before, so I know this is quite simple actually. Like most of the work you're gonna have is actually just on building out the databases, but actually connecting to the Twitter API is like it's really easy. It's a very nice API. So, but no, what I was maybe it's not the right set of words that I use, but I was talking about more like a holistic content strategy. So, because I understand there's different teams, and you did mention that some of them are unifying, but what I found when I joined is that the path, like I found it very exciting, but I found that the kind of the pathway to joining and learning more about the TEC was like an information overload, and like there isn't and kind of that follows like throughout like the whole of the TEC experience, and I've seen messages to that that talk about the same thing in like orientation. So it's like, is there a has there been like a conversation on this, basically?
Yeah, I think you hit something that Communitas has worked on, and kind of it's a very complex problem because a lot of people come to the TEC at different levels and their interests, different levels of their education and knowledge of token engineering, and most of them aren't really sure if they want to contribute or if they're just kind of dipping their toes in to see if they can find any resources that'll help them further their crypto knowledge. And so, you know, having a kind of a welcoming system that says, here's a compact piece of aggregated pieces of information that are right for you is very, very difficult to create. And so I think the onboarding process was in its like kind of it's still in its infant state. We just have that PowerPoint that explains the history of TEC, how we go through that process. And I think the Communitas working group is going to have a lot of a challenge ahead of them in terms of trying to get this even more comprehensive. But I do think it can be done.
But
I just think it's really difficult.
What I mean though is that onboarding isn't limited to when someone joins the Discord. Like the whole idea behind, at least to me, behind having like social media presence is for onboarding, right? It is to both to let people, not only let people know what we're doing, but like entice them into joining the community. So
So you're
yeah,
speaking like underlying narratives.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like Gitcoin. Well, I've been more recently kind of following what Gitcoin tries to do, right? And they have specific people that just shitpost in order to try and get people to join Gitcoin, right? And they ended up doing. I believe they were the ones to create the slogan "Region, not Degen." So that sort of edge, I haven't seen the TC have yet. Maybe it's too soon, but and Gitcoin has more money, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. We have a different pace right now in a lot of ways, and so working on that is going to be really difficult. We have to find our own little niche. I think we can do that, especially with the TE Academy starting to boil up like support and a lot of eyeballs. I think we can really kind of hitch onto that and see if we can get interest into people who are wanting to develop commons. So maybe that could be part of the narrative. But yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, there's also Gideon has said once or twice that one of the potential use cases of the content creation service would be like like a public relations or I don't know. He explains it as a interest group that works on sort of defining token engineering better and just like uh, making better like explaining token engineering is not only it's not only a complex field, but it's explaining token engineering itself is hard. Like what is it and what's the purpose? And so that's probably one thing that's going to come more down the road, as well as some things that I'm guessing communications and communities are going to be heavily working on. But yeah.
Another thing,
Oh,
go ahead, Beck.
the only thing I thought about is doing some campaign calling shitcoins. Like that would cause a fair bit of stir. But I haven't given it too much thought myself. I'm not a content
I
strategist.
personally like it, but I don't know if we can pull that. It's a
Doing
lot of risk.
Doing a campaign, what? Calling a shitcoin? I didn't get.
Yeah, like whether it doesn't need to be directly from the TE Commons Twitter account, but like doing a campaign calling shitcoins what they like, calling a spade, right? Calling out shitcoins for being shitcoins. And
How
then
can
like
we?
doing threads, doing
How,
like Twitter
what,
threads on like saying this shitcoin is terrible because XYZ.
where do we get the authority to point the finger and call other coins shitcoins when we can't figure out the utility for our own token? Right? Like,
That's a fair point, but I'd say that it's more of a like in mechanism design. Our our token is fairly well thought out, right? So
Yeah, I think
we
that comes.
and the whole point of the TEC is to 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 kind of bring token engineering to the masses, right? So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do both. Try and bring more utility to the token, and also have a content strategy that calls everyone out. If you want, we can also call ourselves out as.
Yeah, that's something that I think the contribution service is going to help as well. Like the first group Gideon's been thinking about is sort of T security, and we chatted about how, for example, if these were to happen in the time where just before the UST collapse, we would probably have a lot of content curated about like before the UST collapse. There was a lot of people on Twitter and other places sort of calling it out, and we would have been if we had the content creation service up by then, we would have been able to sort of get a lot of information about that and come to a conclusion and even potentially report on why UST is going to collapse. And yeah, I think we that's an interesting discussion, but I'm not entirely sure if that's in the direct scope of Sampo right now. Um,
Of
because I
course,
feel like
very tragic.
yeah,
No,
and I would
I will.
probably yeah. Go ahead, Nate.
Sorry, I do want to say that there's things we can do adjacent to that with our our token gated section, and like there are people like has anybody followed Zach XBT on Twitter? He does a really good job of analyzing kind of basically crap coins or scams, and he's become very well known for it. And having these kind of reviews of like fraudulent projects in the space and holding a space for people to talk about it or analyze it, I think would be a very interesting concept to bring people in to say, hey, we're going to review this project and talk about whether this is a good token design, a poor token design. These smart contracts aren't audited, because I do think there is a narrative there where token engineering, there's an ethics associated with protecting people in the space that just we don't have. And so there are a lot of people who are talking about it, but we haven't really done anything about it. And I think it would be a really interesting perspective to provide for the public.
Yeah. Can you post the link of that guy somewhere?
Yeah, I sure can.
Um. Okay. I wanted to quickly come back to the talking gate itself and open it up. Um. I think Irem said, I don't remember who it was. Probably Irem said something about I don't probably Rex. I don't know, whatever. About the onboarding journey and confusions and stuff. I think that's a fair point, and we probably shouldn't promote the token gate to newcomers. But what I'm wondering, like what I agree. There's a lot of channels and initiatives that may overlap in a lot of stuff. And I guess mm, the token gated channel is more like a test now, and we just figuring out and just try. We just launch it because we had to launch it, and we we just want to move things forward, and most likely we're going to iterate over the strategy of the token gated channel itself. But I'm really interested in getting people in there. Particularly because these are things that we are going to encounter, and the only way that we are going to improve the service is by getting people in there. And so maybe not newcomers, but just trying to get the regulars on the TC on the channel, and find any potential issues when joining that we can fix, and also just refining the overall strategy. Because right now, I'm not sure how many people have the role, but it's not that many. Let me find out.
I think it's really important. Uh, yeah, I don't know who said that. I think I ran to really find the purpose, right, of the token gated channel. Like, is it gonna be about giving weekly updates about treasuries of the working groups, or should it be more about like sharing knowledge, or like this? I think this idea that Nate had, project reviews, I think that would be great, but it will be probably related with a content curation service as well. So yeah, just like kind of like trying to get into an agreement about what's gonna be the purpose and what's gonna be like the the added value that people will find there and that won't be able to find in these other places, right? Like the newsletter, like the weekly updates. I think it should be kind of like unique, and maybe that is just like the content curation service, right? Maybe that will be the big thing that we'll have there. So maybe it's just like a question about, are we gonna have anything else? Maybe in the meantime, while we get up and running that content curation service, or maybe not. I don't know. Like, in my opinion, I think we should, right? I agree with Andy that we should start like trying on stuff, like trying to get people involved in there. But I am not quite sure like how, to be honest. So yeah, just pointing that out about the purpose. I think that's an important question that could make us easier to then come up with a lot of ideas, um, like more straight and clear ideas.
I agree, Bear, and maybe perhaps Richard can actually fill us in on that because I'm also not sure. I mean, to me, it seems like it's actually basically the infrastructure we want to have, and once we have the services and the value being created through different initiatives, this token gated channel is just going to be one of the channels that we actually distribute that value to people who already have the token, so they get the utility of the services and other initiatives we have through like owning that token, right? So we connect the token to the services and we create the token utility. And without those services and values, yeah, it's a question of purpose. But yeah, again, I think Gideon and Vicha perhaps in the next meeting, I don't know, it should be on Sampo too, the working document on the token gated channel, but I'm not sure if they were thinking of other use cases and other ways of using it before the content curation service. Maybe it's right now, I think there's a focus on that more just because it's a more extensive project. And there's actually, I think it's one of the really first, not the first, I mean, there's so many great initiatives going on, I think, right now in Sampo and so exciting. But something that can actually bring some value and service, right? Something TC is actually doing. And maybe that is also at the core of our issues with social media and Twitter and engagement. Like, we don't really have a service and we don't really have um, a tool that we can showcase and we can promote around and that we want people to engage with. I mean, yes, our communities are in a way our service because we want it to be the Shelling point. We want people to come and exchange ideas, but once we have things that are more tangible and people can come in and experiment with and try out, I think we're going to have also organically a better chance to create content that's going to pull people in. So that also ties back to a lot of the things Rex and Nate has been talking about. So I think right now, to me, like in my head, it really makes sense to maybe focus on this content curation service and tie it to token gated channel in that way and see how they tie together. But also, if a group is working on other ways to add value to the token gated channel, independent of the um, curation service, yeah, that would also be great.
I also think that's a really important thing that Erin, you stated was that we should be experimenting. I think that with a token curated channel, if we have a voice channel as well, like we could be doing interviews, token engineers in the space, even people within our own Discord and DAO, and start promoting just attending conversations, and using that as a method for getting people to purchase the token, get involved, listen to the really good conversations that we're having around the space, around commons development, around token engineering developments. I think there's a lot of people we can interview and talk to, and these interviews can be just kind of casual. They don't have to be these formal podcast style interviews. It's just kind of, hey, let's talk about the subject, one on one, one on two, and try to create a conversation space for people to start talking about. But the core point is that we shouldn't be afraid to experiment. And I think that if we can experiment with a couple of ideas, test it out, see how it works, because at the end of the day, the point of the creating utility is to drive economic activity through our bonding curve and through our economy. And so we want to get people to participate any way they can. And so I think just let's experiment, let's test out, let's iterate and keep moving forward with it.
I think everyone here is operating under the assumption that the token gated channel will be enough, or would be sort of like the panacea for our income generation woes. I mean, that's fine if we have that as a hypothesis that it's going to be a significant improvement in terms of the utility for the coin and drive demand for TEC. But are there any cases that we can point out? I think Friends with Benefits has a similar token gated content thing going on. I'd just be curious to see if there's any data to support the implicit assumption that this is going to be something that will be, that will drive income generation, or are there other things? Are there other initiatives that Sampo is working on that will, in parallel, drive income generation? Because I mean, maybe we can put it to a vote. Like, who in here thinks that by opening token gated channel, then enough people will buy the TC for it to cause significant impact on the price, and thus allow us more funding for projects?
I don't think it will, but I do think like creating as much utility in aggregate. So like we have a token gated community, and then we add a different utility function for something else, and a different utility function for something else. These things combined could contribute to significant changes in the amount of velocity in the economic system. But you're right. I don't think this alone is going to do it. But I do think if this works and we have other aspects of utility functions, that's what we're going for. It's just this kind of aggregate approach to many utility functions for this token.
Yeah, I think. Hi, Dr. Welcome. I don't think we are sort of expecting the Talking Gate channel to be this this major driver of utility. But first of all, it is a very inexpensive experiment to make. Guild took 5 minutes to set up. That's for one, and then I think the Talking Gated channel may not drive utility on its own, at least not in a substantial amount. But I think we are going to learn a lot about access management and other stuff that I believe it's going to be more important down the road by implementing these kinds of solutions. And the other question that was about what's Sampo working on, there's a few things on the pipeline, so there's the token gated channel, but there's also a curation service that we are planning to use on sort of interest groups. So like similar to Omega, for example, where they um, they more than a working group is more like an interest group where they meet and they discuss and they build knowledge. Um, and so for instance, the creative service can be a great tool for them to just be able to curate information and knowledge. And with that, we can spun up a lot of other interest groups like security, like public relations for token engineering, etc., etc. There was also a request board for projects looking for token engineers that in which they would have to stake some TEC and yada yada. Um, so there's a few things going on, and but what I like about the token gated channel is precisely that we are now learning how to drive access management, and um, it is also challenging our um, like we don't seem to be that open to getting stuff, and this is challenging how we think about that because like one of the first use cases for the token gate was education, and the first thing we thought is what was like, okay, but the academy is doing a lot of effort on keeping education open. So how else are we going to use the token gate? And we are continuously running into that wall where we have a lot of competing ideas, like what everyone said on we having on the TC having a lot of stuff that's similar. I think it's also a symptom of the same thing. Like we have announcements in the newsletter, and we like to share things on the open, and now we are just trying to find out things that we can that are valuable enough to keep in secret, but without breaking our openness and um, I don't know. Uh,
Personally, I think spending time to train someone to become at least quasi token engineer, going through the beginner, the intermediate, and the advanced Katakata courses, and consulting with long tail financial in terms of how they uh, like everything that it takes for them to provide the token engineering service and emulating that and requesting asking for people. I mean, a lot of the people, perhaps uh, maybe half of the people that I onboarded, uh, they were looking to consult with us uh, for token engineering for their project. And I was ashamed to say we didn't have the talent because the demand far outpaced the supply, and because we were sort of like early in terms of like the T fundamentals course wasn't ready yet. So there aren't enough token engineers out there. So personally, I think if we spend time sort of like sponsoring someone or training someone to become a token engineer and associating with partnering with Longtail Financial to mentor that person and then offering that person with the disclaimer that it's not the full token engineering service, but it's a beginning. And it is a much cheaper one than the alternative of actually asking a token engineer, which is like a data scientist in terms of the cost. I think if we went that route, it would be uh, uh, much more valuable in terms of income generation than a token gated channel because I'm not saying it's not going to be valuable. I'm just saying there's so much information out there. And we're going to be competing with like influencers that offer that service for free because they find ways to monetize it on the back end. So, um,
yeah.
anyway, that's my opinion.
Um, if I may quickly interrupt there. So there's a few things happening there. Again, the token gate was just easy to get on, but um, there's like that's a more complex project, just like you pointed out. And For instance, the academy is doing similar things. Now we run into the issue of our relationship with the other parties on the TE ecosystem, and how we deal with that is something that won't be figured out, in a day. And that's actually something we are sort of working on. But also, in the case of the academy, they are fully down to working with the fundamental score. So that's sort of in the icebox right now. Um, so yeah, like I fully agree with you, but there are some projects that like a lot of us agree can drive major value, but aren't just easy or feasible right now. But we're doing our best to work towards them.
Yeah.
And last thing before we continue, we are almost at the top of the hour, and I wanted just to make sure what's the conclusion on opening the Talking Gate channel right now. Should we wait for the next week and see what Richa and Gideon have to say about the scope of the content and what's the value that it's going to bring before we open it up, or should we start right away and try to, I don't know, promote it to other people leading calls and try them to get people into the Talking Gate channel? um, just going
Or
after more regular contributors.
yeah, if you let me just answer to that, I don't think would be it's a blue ocean market that we're operating in. I don't think would be cannibalizing or taking away from what T Academy is doing if we offer some sort of services that overlap with what they're doing. I don't think would be like I don't think we need to tiptoe around like, oh, we cannot offer this service because the T Academy is offering it. I mean, we're like objectively on a crisis here, and we funded the T Academy. Like we're on the same, like we're playing on the same team, like we're on the same ecosystem. So I think there's enough space for two whales on the blue ocean market that we're operating in. That's what I want to say.
Manu, I think because there was talk on this around a month ago of trying to create a version one of specifically what you talk about, which I agree is it's what makes the most sense with our vision. But I believe it was the T Academy that kind of basically told us to wait, because it was going to be a partnership and doing it together. Now, given that the T fundamentals course is going to take most of their time, and that it would be a good idea to have the system in place by the time they finish the T fundamentals, I don't see why we haven't proposed to them or why they haven't agreed to kind of give us the reins and still participate with us in building out such a system.
Yeah, I think this conversation it's super important as well, and I think we should keep having it probably during the next call. And yeah, just like Kenti said, I think we're at the top of the hour. Just wanted to say real quick that I think something. I think before promoting the token gated channel, I think it would be good to get to an agreement about the purpose of it. And something that I got from Manu that I think it would be like a super really good idea is to maybe as a suggestion in the meantime we could look for examples of other communities or of other DAOs or projects having a token gated channel and see what they're doing with that, and maybe we can get some ideas from there that we can discuss next week. So that's just like my closing comment.
Yeah, I was just going to say, token gating is just like a paywall, right? So all you're doing really is artificially restricting, certain things. But the question is what does the market actually want from us, right? What can we provide that, for example, the T Academy hasn't already? I came in here with an idea about something for Sampo, but I guess it's not on the table for now. But maybe I guess I'm just token gating by itself is just it's just a kind of a paywall situation. So I don't fully understand. I mean, I can see why people would be resistant to the paywall idea, but what precisely are we going to provide? Like the very first thing I do when I'm working with marketing communications people is, who is it you want to talk to? So are there sub sections of token engineers we want to get to? Or what about the 5 or the 8 different kinds of DAOs that exist? are we targeting any one of those, right? So these are all questions that I would have to ask. Just token gating by itself is not particularly meaningful, but what is it specifically that we have to add value? And I just, wonder what hide behind this paywall that's going to be so valuable, and to who, so I'd basically want to, write something up about that before we make such a big deal out of, paywalling things.
Yeah. One of the really like one of the conclusions we made when launching the Talking Gated channel was that at least like we we aren't sure of what do we want to gate, or if there's anything we actually want to gate, because we, like I said, we like to share things in the open. But the thing with this version 0.1 of the Talking Gate channel, let's call it that way, is that we are just opening a more direct conversation channel for with token holders. So the the only requirement to join the channel is having one TC that you can easily get with praise. So it's at this point it's more about um, a more direct funnel of communication than actually getting things, and that's probably how it's going to operate for a decent amount of time until we actually figure out what is that we want to make with it.
Right, but
Um,
I guess what I'm saying is, how is it more direct? In what way exactly? Just having another Discord channel? How is that more direct? We're already direct.
well,
That's what I'm
um,
asking. It's just,
is
oh, okay, you have to
like
gate, so it doesn't make
before
sense to me.
before you entered,
Yeah,
Bear
we talked
said
about some of them. Yeah.
that Giri Royale made a comment on our use of roles. And I guess this is a great example because now we have a dedicated role for people that we know that have our token, and we can direct information to them easily. Um, and that's how I'm saying it. Like we fair like I think we need better role management in general, and the Talking Gate is a great direction um to do that, I guess.
I don't know if I agree with you on that. I think that it's a good, like, it has raised the issues that we have with role management, but I don't think it's a catch-all because it's one additional role, right? If you actually wanted to role manage, then that's a separate discussion on both the structure of the Discord, the channels, trying to kind of
Yeah,
condense channels into one,
yeah.
rearrange them so that some of them are more accessible than others, and then you can consider. The only thing I can think of that might be useful more to token holders is to bring in like but this isn't content curation. This is simply like essentially building out like a simple uh, bot that just in the event that a vote is required in the gardens, that token holders are basically at it, and they're like, "Hey, you check out this proposal that's trying to be passed through."
Yeah, that's one thing I proposed. But I don't know. I don't really feel comfortable. Like assuming what is it going for, especially because Gideon and Richa, who are sort of in charge of the project, aren't here. So like I'm trying to come up with something, but it's not like I know what do they have in their minds. But I'm getting the impression that we probably should wait before making any effort to open it up more,
Yeah,
and just get more direct information from them on what are they thinking about it.
yeah. I think that we can certainly add value, but it does make sense to like it. To me, it raises questions on the rest of the content because we also don't want to. Because yeah, there's like in order to token gate, you also need to know like what doesn't go in, right? So if another group has something that would be good to token gate and they post it outside of that, then the value of our token gate also reduces further.
I think it was interesting that you assumed that the Twitter scraping, that the output from the Twitter scraping bot uh, was linked somehow with the token gated. It's not like there's overlap, and I'd gladly.
No, what I mean by that is what I mean by that is the first post of the token gated channel is something that is so. I would agree that in this scenario it's transparency that's in the wrong, right? But it's like very similar to what transparency does in their audit reports. So it's like no, obviously which added a lot of meat to the visualization, but that's kind of the same thing we've been doing in the audit reports. So it's
I
like,
don't
does it go
see.
in the audit report? Does it go in the token gate? Like in
I
my
don't.
eyes, the audit report shouldn't have the sort of stuff that was added in that first post, and it makes sense to have it elsewhere in the audit, be more technical. But yes, it's
Yeah,
those sorts of questions that I mean, not just so I bring it to like the space that I know.
yeah. Like, well, I don't think it is necessarily competing with, in this case, transparency, just as you said. Because even you're right. Just the transparency report needs to improve, but overall, the message on the Talking Gated channel is way more digestible and way more quick. And I myself would probably appreciate it more than going through the audit report, because there's a lot of things I don't particularly um, care about, I guess. But also, I don't know. Levy also posted the poll on the stakeholder signal, and there's way less noise on this channel than on the other channel she posted it. I think it was the general or something like that. And so again, uh, there's clear room for improvement. But I can see for the price that the project for the cost of the project, I can see how it can add value at some fairly. Um,
Of
and
course, it's not to put it down in any way. Like I
again,
actually, yeah.
well,
Oh
in yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's like you dropped out for a second, or my connection dropped out, so I can hear you. Please go on.
Okay, well, yeah, and then um, I can go on talking about Guild, but then Guild is an awesome tool not only for token gating but for role access in general. And um, like the token gate has just a few weeks, and there's a lot we can learn from it, and a lot we can use it, and a lot like we can combine, like others said, like the creation service with the token gate. But those are things that we are going to figure out, with time. But we made the what's more important is just the first step that was just launching the token gated channel. Now we are in the path to figuring out what's it that we're going to use it for. um I was and I've, these are all very legit concerns. I was probably coming to the conversation with a more um technical approach about solving issues with the token gated channel, because that's what I worked on in the project. Like I tested the tools, etc., and I was just looking to solve any of the potential issues, and that's why I wanted to promote it. But I think it makes a lot of sense that probably not to bring as much people to a place that we aren't really sure yet. That's like how it's going to use it for.
Oh, by the way,
Well,
I found a bug. Before I forget. So I wanted to join the common stack thingy. So anyway, I sold my TC. I sold my $70 of TC tokens, but I still have access to the channel. So
Yeah.
the logic to to remove the role isn't working if you have
Yeah,
it.
that's a known bug. That's most likely because the token it's not a standard ERC20. But the guild team is supposedly working on it. I hope that
Okay.
they can solve it soon.
Cool.
I think it's important to just recognize how backwards this is from the way that this entire community was set up from the beginning, right? So all the stuff we didn't think about, we were all going to be funding things and giving money to people instead of getting them to then reverse the whole thing, and suddenly we're providing services and asking for money from people, right? Or qualifying them in that way. So it's an interesting problem. And it seems to me that we should probably, revisit our, vision, mission, values, and other stuff I mean, frankly, we're in the middle of doing Gravity's whole thing, and we're setting ourselves up to do both sides of the picture, where we actually have clients, and we will be funding things and having clients at the same time. And so fundamentally, if we had thought of this right sort of from the beginning, that what happens if there's a bear market? Maybe we could have avoided some of this. So from my perspective, I feel like we need to kind of stop for a second instead of just being like, okay, we got this one working group working on this. I think we need to revisit what the whole value proposition is of the token engineering commons. Yeah, okay, it can be a showing point, but also we provide services and we do other things. So I think it's maybe a deeper thing than just, hey, we need to create a token gated Discord channel, if you know what I'm saying. I think it might be a little more fundamental than that. So anyway, that's my perspective.
I second that.
Yeah, I agree on that too. And I think this is something that has been talked. I've heard Nate and Levy talk about this, like revisiting the mission, vision, values. I think that's kind of a priority. And this is something that it's kind of like coming up regularly, like through different working groups and through different projects. Is like, kind of like trying to remind us that you guys should go back and should start again and should revisit what you're doing, and like that fundamentally part of what the TEC is, right? So I guess what you're feeling, Durgadas, is kind of like the same thing, right? Like, doesn't feel strong to keep building without like really well-defined basis, right? So yeah, I agree with that. But at the same time, I think that we should still keep moving, right? Like, for example, well, we were saying before that during this time that is summertime and people are not as active, or at least not like the contributors that used to be as active because they're on vacation or whatever. Like, what does that mean for the TEC? Does that mean that should we wait for them in order to revisit all of these, or should we keep moving forward, or should we just like take a break? And like, there's a lot of questions that are kind of like hard to answer, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's
I just want to say something real quick, because I do think that we have this kind of economic tunnel vision in a lot of ways, where we look at our economy and we say, oh, why isn't it working? Why isn't it doing this? And we don't really see the impact that we've had so far. And when it comes to being the Schelling point, we've done a really, really, really good job in terms of facilitating the TE Academy, the getting token engineers aggregated into a single place. We've held conversations. We've done a lot of really good things in terms of becoming a Schelling point. I do think this is kind of the first phase of it. As we start to focus on the economic aspect of it, I don't want to take our eyes off of what the foundations that we've set up for the token engineering field in general. And we're going to have, this kind of evolution that is unknown and uncertain. But I think that we do have a good foundation here, and I don't want people to be kind of solely focused on this economic issue at present. And, and that did the only thing that's concerning.
So what you're talking about really brings me back to saying this is the value that we have, right? We have the value is our culture. We have a value that is our. So now that we've got this value and that we are the default by default, right? Which is what the Schelling point is. The place where people turn in the absence of any other alternative. That's itself a value, right? So, so we should, revisit our entire way we sort of market ourselves. And it's funny to me actually that we have an entire comms group, within this community. That's a perfect group to be tasked with, revisioning the way that we take a look at all that, right? So
Yeah. Finish. Sorry.
I think it's a great time actually, given that there is low activity, to work on revisiting this vision. I mean, we will need everybody to agree to it. However, oftentimes going in raw wastes a lot of time, right? Like because there's a lot more back and forth. However, if we revisit it and we give some options thereof, it's an easier process for everybody and ends up bringing the best.
I actually disagree. Like I agree with the general sentiment and statement, especially of Durgueras, but I don't really follow, or I don't really think that's the best way to go about it. I think at this point we are doing the best way possible. We're doing the best thing possible, which is just sort of naturally evolving. Um, like from a lot of the projects Sampo's working on, I'm of course talking about Sampo because that's where I'm actually more involved. Um, but also communications is undergoing a major changes, and also stewards, so we are naturally evolving. And right now, like revisiting the mission, vision, and values, I don't think it's going to be that productive, because there's a lot of things that not even in practice we know. What are we going to do? Is sit down and talk about them in theory, and then just try to chase after that theory, when in practice we haven't been able to figure it out yet. I think I think the smartest way to go about it is just figuring things out, and then revisiting the mission, vision, and values to sort of accommodate what we are working towards.
We're working towards the vision.
Yeah, right.
yeah,
But
that seems
it,
upside down to me. But
and
okay.
we in at least for the most part, I don't think we haven't really made anything contrary to the actual vision.
Oh, but when I
The
think of
the,
just
the
open
MVP
source
is
projects in general, say I was taking a look at the KDE project, which is a desktop environment, basically one of the two biggest desktop environments in Linux. They revisit their vision every 2 years, and this is a project that's been going on for decades, right? So it's not uncommon. And the way they go about it is they have a vote between developers, in which any developer can kind of bring about the core values, and the developers essentially select, these are the ones that we should focus on, and the top 3 ones are selected, are championed over the following 2 years, and then that process is repeated over and over and over, right? So every 2 years they select, right now we want to increase accessibility in this desktop. Now we want to make it look modern, etc., etc. So it's not uncommon, and I disagree with the idea that going in blind is going to be more productive than
But we are not going in blind.
No, there's a lot of people who have been here for a long time, including myself. I even
Yeah.
made a graphic that describes precisely the iterative process that you're talking about, like a year and a half ago. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I will say the MVV is not, it's not so much the goals of the organization itself, but more giving the current participants ownership over that. we're going to have a revolving door of participants and contributors and people that are going to come in and go away. And each time that happens, we need to have a periodic review of the MVP, not for the sake of changing anything. It could end up being the same thing, but we have to have this kind of sense of ownership by the new contributors that come in, that they had a say, that they had an input, that they have some sense of ownership of where we're heading. And I think
Totally.
that's the hugest
Totally.
value that it provides.
I agree.
I
That I
think
agree with.
I think we've been doing that for a few weeks now in soft golf, especially, right? Like I don't know how much of that translates into the work and the experimentation and prototyping we do, but I definitely think it organically has been. I mean, a lot of us here, I mean, Nate and NT and Bear, like joining soft gov calls and really doing the SWOT analysis and thinking about a lot of the MVP processes, and later on coming to Sampo and like thinking of how are we going to experiment, for example, even with the token gated channel. Yes, it would be, I mean, it's the ideal scenario that we have it, like we have to tell a story while marketing this service, right? We have to have a value. How are we going to promote this? But at the same time, I remember one of the initial goals of creating it in the first place was just to just get moving with like experimenting and seeing, okay, what if we have this channel and we actually promote it to token holders, and they come into the channel, and we want to see get a sense of, okay, do they start engaging in it? Do they like what are the things that they bring also, and like how do they respond to the content we put in there? So I think it's not like one way or the other, but I have a feel that we've already been doing we've already been working both ways this past month. I think really visioning this our values and mission, at least like in my experience with the soft goal calls, but maybe maybe it hasn't been like translated into the whole community, or maybe I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, is is the general community aware of the workshops we've been doing there and the discussions we've been having around soft goal? Maybe it hasn't really went that broad. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, no, I haven't heard anything out of the soft gov calls. I sort of stopped going because I heard that I heard a lot of resistance to change and evolution and everything in there, so I kind of stopped attending. So that was my feeling about it. I just think we need to recognize that the reason why the Sampo group exists is because we were short-sighted when we started this project, and we thought only in terms of the bull market that was going on, at the time, and all the enthusiasm that everyone had about getting it done and all that stuff. So now we need to do more than just the Sampo group. We need to revise the whole way we go about doing things to create a bit more of a resilient population and set of systems, especially on the economic side, so you can benefit from both sides of this picture. So
To what you're saying, Aram, yeah, to be honest, yeah, I think that's also one of the things, right? That sometimes conversations that happen within the working groups, they just stay there and they don't really we don't really have like concrete actions after in order to make it like more public and more visible. But like in terms of let's say like the MVV and restructuring the TEC and all of this, one of the other places that I've also heard this conversation a lot is it's been with the stewards, like during the retrospective and during the sprint planning. I feel like Nate can confirm this. This is something that has been coming up sometimes, that it has been discussed with Juanca and with Levy, with Edu a couple of times. So I mean, it's there, but maybe it's just not enough, and I think we still need to kind of like make more of a plan and take more concrete actions to make this more into an actual change, right? And not just leave it in a conversation.
Yeah, with that being said, I want to encourage all of you to come tomorrow morning to the sprint planning, because I'm proposing a completely different way of doing sprint planning than we have before, that kind of allows us to kind of all aggregate on single issues and try to get things done, becoming more productive and coalition building amongst the working group. So it's not just individual efforts that have very little transparency and very little follow through. I think getting us all on the same page and making sure we have a sprint planning process that reflects our organization, and we have priority setting within each sprint planning. And so if you guys can make it tomorrow morning, I'd be really grateful to have you, because we're going to walk through this new setup and new process. So yeah, I want to make that announcement.
Sure, that sounds great.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, I'll be there, Nate. Thank you.
I'm about to drop off the call. Got some other stuff to do, but I really look forward to continue this conversation next week. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. It was a great conversation. Appreciate you, everybody.
Hey, Nate.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what you're proposing here.
Yeah. So the whole purpose of this kind of split planning process that we've had in the past has been, in my opinion, really, really ineffective. And so what I'd like to see is to have with the new proposed setup for the stewards working group, or we'll have a couple of common stewards, we'll have the individual working group stewards, is that the working groups will be dedicated to running their own internal sprint planning processes, what they prioritize, but on the commons level, we're going to have a certain 2 or 3 big epics each sprint, and we'll pick one of them. So we'll prioritize one of those epics each sprint, and we're going to try to facilitate each working group to see how the working groups can actually contribute to executing on that particular issue within that epic. And so at the end of each sprint retrospective, we should have at least one epic achieved. And so we start chipping away at the things that the foundational priorities that we need to accomplish, instead of having managing every working group and every individual contribution to every working group. And so I would like this to see us swarm as working groups towards collective goals, rather than kind of having these disparate initiatives where we're trying to keep up with what everybody else is doing. It's like, hey, this is one priority. This is the priority we have this sprint, and let's all swarm to it. Let's make sure we get it done and then move on to the next one. And so that's kind of the format I would like to see occur. Doing this, we haven't had this done in practice yet, and so I would like to see us start to build the foundations for that, and try to get it executed. But did you have any ideas or concerns that you are regarding that process?
Well, it was for me. I just keep wanting to see a more precise iteration of things, a la liberating structures, right? So like the what, so what, now what kind of thing, where it's like documented. What did we do? What do we think about it? And then, what are we doing about it, kind of thing. So.
And that's kind of what the common stewards were like. I would like to see them not focus so much on the individual working groups, but like saying, okay, this is what do we need to execute on this vision that we have for the greater commons, and say, okay, we have these three broad ideas of what we want to get to, and then we have a list of epics that contribute to those ideas, and then we allow the community to decide what are the priorities at that time. And so we have this kind of like, we have the common stewards who have a lot of knowledge about what direction we're heading, and then we present the work to the community and say, what do you think is the priority? And then once we decide what the priority is, then we execute on it, on the epics towards that priority.
Sure.
And so
that would then do kind of a liberating structures kind of thing too, right? In the sense that it's going to be a bit more focused on trying to. I've just burned the crap out of my lunch here, so I'm walking around trying to get things to work again. So sorry.
No worries.
But yeah, it's
You should. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
You should try minting it now.
Yes, that's funny. Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is that but perhaps just getting some training for the stewards, if you know what I'm saying. Not just anybody who shows up, but if you want to be a steward, then you need to maybe go through and like have trained somewhat in these liberating structures so that you know what thing is appropriate for a given moment, right? Because if your job then is to turn to the community, the primary skill you need is that of facilitation, right? Or maybe we can just have, Jeremy come and say, hey, let's, maybe lead us through different kinds of things so we can watch and observe his amazing skill about that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just, my whole thing is that if you put competence down inside of the people, right? So, like, for example, if you take a look at the way we're doing our Gravity website, right? We could have a website up in a day, but I'm not doing that. I'm forcing people inside of the Gravity to go through a process whereby they learn how we would construct the website and for what, you know. So they actually have to go through this educational process in order to get the thing that they want, which is the website, right? So you don't just say, like, we're trying to do these external things. We're trying to do these external things, plus we're trying to use the pretext of those external things to better develop all of the individuals who are participating inside of that system. So that we would then culturally just all agree that it was important to do this two-part process, right? Not that you just learn things randomly or incidentally or like you would naturally do when you engage with anything, right? It's much more about doing that from an intentional standpoint.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I feel like separating that notion of like, here is, here's the direction that we're heading, but also, like separating that from just saying, okay, go do it,
right?
But rather like guiding them towards it and
Totally.
making, like, having education built within it is the hard part.
Yeah.
But I do think separating it is really important, because without that separation, everybody has their own version of where we're heading. And if you were to ask each individual in the TEC right now what we should be doing in Sampo working group, or what we should be doing in communications, you're going to get an answer from everybody, a different answer. And that doesn't help anybody, especially when we're working independently of each other. And so what I would really like to see is like having this high level articulation of the direction we're heading for culture, where we're heading for economics, where we're heading for, ecosystem, for token engineering, and having those visions set out, detailed, articulated, and then going, how do we execute on this?
Well, see,
here's the thing.
but executing is one thing, but it's how is it that we're going to come to an agreement about all of what you just mentioned, right?
But I guess
And there
my
are
question
tools
would
for
be
that.
is, do you think giving the option for priorities is enough? Like, if we offer the community, hey, what do you want to prioritize out of the work that we've listed out that needs to get done? Is that enough of kind of a liberating structure that will allow people to feel like they have ownership or feel like they're contributing?
I think that what I'm trying to say is that what we're doing is we are oversimplifying, coming in and saying, I mean, it's nice as people to go around and say, well, okay, so what are your intentions and distractions? Well, is that the best way to run a meeting? Is that what we need right now for this meeting? Do you see what I'm saying? Is it what we need? Do we have people who have enough awareness and listening and competence to then shift maybe to a different kind of liberating structure, because that is what we need right now? Do you follow me? It's not that
I
I'm
did, yeah.
saying that it's not. It's just that what we're doing is we're saying there's just, everyone here is so nice, and so therefore, because everyone's so nice, then the meeting structure that they use is fine. Well,
And
is it?
I
You know, like, are we going to evolve our methodologies as well as, you know, our
and a part of that I
technical
think
thing?
is we got kind of lazy in that terms, because like at the beginning when we first started this, I thought
Mhm.
it was very interesting that concept where each of the working groups would have their own style of opening question. Comms had
Sure.
like pop
Yep.
culture and
Yep.
media,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
SoftGov had like kind of more deep aspects of
Yep.
it, gravity,
Yep.
conflict man, and then it became a little static. But like I don't know how to encourage each working group to have their own customs, their own traditions, their own styles of doing things.
I've just told you.
And yeah, but I
How you
mean,
don't.
like
Yeah.
incentivizing that type of behavior
So you
is the hard
develop
part.
competence of people to make, you know, adjustments in what they do. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, so now I'm better at this. And then everyone who works with them underneath will be better at that, right? We've got a super genius. We should be paying that super genius to help us reform our methodology, you know? So we've got both Lean and Jeremy who are professionals at this, right? Why wouldn't we take advantage of that? So
That's
that's
fair.
my
Yeah.
perspective, you know? So that's the reason why I wanted them here. This was the reason why I started talking about liberating structures in the hope that we would attract somebody like that. And now
Yep.
they're here, but what are we doing with them?
Yep.
We aren't really. We're still asking about intentions and distractions. And so, right? So,
Yep.
you know, are we really evolving? You know? So, you know, that's what I'm saying is if you actually put a thing in place where you're like, I want us as a community and us as stewards to be better, right? And you
Yep.
just keep showing up in meetings asking that to be better, right? And then, you know, so like I said, I showed up at SoftGov for a while and then I felt like I was contributing and then, you know, but then it was like, well, I don't know if things are that bad. I mean, you know, like I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not making a value judgment. I'm simply saying here's where we are. Here's how we can improve. And then
Yep.
keeping a relentless focus on that instead of people would continuously during the times that I was talking, they would say, well, we have to realize that, you know, we've done just groundbreaking things and it's not like, you know, so like we just get all these people apologizing and I'm like, I have a relentless focus on improvement continuously. That's all I'm talking about. It's
Yep.
not like I'm denigrating what we've already done. What I'm saying, okay, from here, you know, I mean, this is, you have to take a coaching, you know, attitude toward things, right? This is a big group of people. It takes a long time to move them. If you're not continuously coaching them, you know, then they don't go anywhere, you know?
I agree with that.
So
And I do that a lot actually. But
people
the
get
thing is
defensive.
that it's not so much like defensive, but it's like I know how negative mindsets can kind of permeate
Hmm.
through the culture,
Right.
and it can happen really quick. And I've seen it with other DAOs, and I've been in
Hmm.
other DAOs where you have a couple of personalities who are really negative all the time, and they look at the negative aspects of it, and it just spreads like a disease, and it's not
And
great to
so,
watch.
and so, so what I'm saying though is
Yeah.
that if you think that what I'm saying is that,
No.
then
I'm just saying like
it's a different thing, right? So if you're misunderstanding it, I can understand why you'd say all this apologist stuff, but
yeah,
that's not what we're trying to do here, right?
yeah, and
So
that's the thing. It's like I just want to make sure that there's a counter to that. But I agree.
there's a
There's got to
counter to
be
what?
to any like kind of negative mindsets in terms of not so much criticizing, but like saying it's doomsday for everything. Like there's nothing to panic about in the
Is
TEC,
that
in
what
my
I'm
opinion.
saying?
No. I'm just saying that my comments on things regarding that are
Oh, okay.
always to counter that notion.
I see.
I welcome all criticisms and and negative viewpoints, but to a degree. I do think that we should focus on the good things that we've done as well. I just don't think we share that enough as well. So
Well, okay. I'm just to have a continuous improvement mindset isn't automatically negative.
no, and that's what I'm saying. There's a
Yeah.
balance there.
Yeah.
So, but yes, constructive criticisms are really good. So, but yeah, I and I would love to have that type of feedback as well when it comes to the sprint planning process. So, yeah, I will try to articulate that as best I can and try to put it in the forum and
Well,
see if we get some
continuous
feedback.
improvement is a well-known sprint, is a well-known IT thing where you're just continuously in a loop of continuous improvement, right? That's, you're just iterating and making things better, and it's just everyone accepts that, that thing is. And if you end up with this mentality where everyone's sitting there thinking, oh geez, uh, we really screwed up. Like, I'm not over here, too much going, hey, I told you so about all this. What about the bear market? How does it work in that situation? Everyone was so idealistic at the beginning of that. So how do we handle that part of it? What happens when things are bear? Oh, that's just thinking negatively. See? And so then I'm like, all right, so okay, so
Yeah.
now later on, I'm just be like, hey, taking a wide viewpoint on things isn't automatically negative, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm particularly sensitive at this point in time because I think there are a lot of changes, and I don't think we've been handling that change very well.
Yeah.
And so trying to
Right.
kind of make sure that everybody understands that this is a normal process and not something that's like
totally. And what I'm saying is that things like putting liberating structures into our daily stuff, making stewards have competence in them, would normalize, would ritualize the kind of low level conflict that you're talking about. That's actually what Jeremy said is stuck with me. He said, and that's the thing about liberating structures is they ritualize conflict.
That's something that I wish we had a space for, and we really don't. Like, I would love to have a dedicated space for criticisms, improvements, things of that nature, where we don't naturally just automatically try to condemn it or stop it from happening.
Right.
Because we expect this. We have it merge in some working group calls, and it comes out, and people don't know how to handle it, myself included. Because I'm like, I'm not sure if this is the space for it because we're trying to work on these X, Y, and Z. But if we had a dedicated space for that type of dialogue,
it wouldn't
make it a lot easier.
It's a dedicated space about learning to be competent in that, and then therefore it would push it out to everyone else in the community. And when I see a thing where we have so much change, one of the best ways to do that is to ritualize those changes, to create some kind of learn something where you're like, now I have to adhere to a thing, and there's like, oh, okay, well that creates all kinds of. Now I can take the thing that seemed like a conflict and seemed like a problem before. I have a way of transforming in that into something which is beautiful and productive and will advance, the mission and all that,
And that might be an interesting use case for the token gated channel, to be honest with you. Just having a place where token holders can come and say, hey, we're going to talk about this today, and all your thoughts and criticisms and just perspectives that you want to get out on the table, everything that's been bothering you, throw it out, and we'll talk about it.
Well, you remember when we all had a book club about Ostrom's principles? The reason why we did that was because we wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page in terms of where we were orienting ourselves, which is on a commons. I'm just suggesting that we use a different tool set and a different book club and a different thing, and have a different requirement for people who are going to be stewards to have a minimum level of
competency,
facilitation experience, right? And liberating structure is just one of those, potential things. It's very deep. There's an awful lot to it, and it does everything we want it to do. Each one of them, right? It makes it more egalitarian, everything. So, I guess I'm just gonna keep asking for that,
Yeah,
So,
well, I mean, let's see if we can incorporate it within the token gated channel, because I do think that would be really interesting to have presentation. Like the thing that I would be, if I was an outsider, I would want to hear people talk about subjects that I'm interested in. And
sure.
so there's a whole group of people, like Gravity completely surprised me with how many people were interested in conflict management, nonviolent communication, and these areas. And so having a channel that has, we highlight people who are very competent in these fields and experts in these fields to discuss these things, I think would bring a lot of new people in, and try to get, one part of that token utility to be
Well, and
effective.
if we're spinning off like we are to our own DAO, right? Can
Yep.
there be some kind of like tithing situation from us to you guys? That's another. So if we're spinning off groups, to do different things, does the TE Academy bring money back into the Token Engineering Commons?
Yep.
It does. So, well, maybe, that's a thing that, we need to do with Gravity too, right?
I mean, yeah,
So,
it doesn't currently, but it will eventually.
oh, it doesn't currently.
No, it doesn't currently. Right now, they're just facilitating the first fundamentals course, and then moving on from there. But they will have token utility through their NFT and certification stuff, and I think later on they might have some special, like more niche field courses where people actually pay in TVC tokens.
Right.
So, but yeah. So I think that this is all really good for conversations, and I would like to see that too. So maybe we could start like a stewards program for educating, like a requirement to become a steward.
Well, and I guess what I'm saying is that if we're going to move the emphasis of a steward from them being good at whatever it is that they're good at, right, and getting shit done, to facilitating between large numbers of people, asking them how to get something done, then we can't just assume that that's a transferable skill, right?
Yep.
That because a person's automatically good at one, doing one thing doesn't make them able to facilitate it, right?
Yeah.
So
I agree with that actually a lot.
So that's why I'm bringing it up right now. So
because it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an expert in whatever you're doing either. It's just that you're able to facilitate that conversation in a way that becomes productive and everybody feels empowered.
Exactly. And Jeremy's very rarely the expert in anything, in any group that he's in. But at the same time, he's amazing at drawing people out who are, right? So, and I think just it goes a long way to say, if we're going to be stewards, how can we be better stewards, right? Better stewarding could be the name of our, kind of thing, and that could actually be a product that we produce for other DAOs to say, how does one actually become better at this? What are the key components of becoming better stewards, right? So we could just turn that right around and say, how to be a better steward for things. And so, anyway, that's also a Sampo thing, because then that would bring money in, right? We'd go in and charge people to teach them how to do that, right? Identify people who are already pretty good at it and make them better. So, anyway, these are all just things that I kind of showed up today to talk a little bit about.
No, I appreciate that, and we've extended this conversation 50 minutes over. And
Sorry.
I think it's no. I just want to be respectful of everybody's time.
Are there more people here still? I don't know.
Yes,
people listening.
we're listening.
What do you guys think of all of this?
No, honestly,
We
the
need
best
to
goal
be
and
more aggressive in terms of income generation.
Yeah, I agree as well, but I think that the fact all of us showed is that we care about this community, right?
That's right.
I don't think it's necessarily a Faustian bargain if we try to lean onto that. I think it's in terms of survival, or at least in terms of like providing, just increasing the talent. Like, I mean, it's like we're amputating a foot and calling ourselves more nimble and expecting it to grow back, right? And it's like we're literally like it's we're decreasing the pace. Like, I understand, but I think like what we're doing, it's not enough. Or if it's enough, I just would like to see data on historic result from projects that we're emulating? Why don't we just copy from projects that have amazing utility in the amount that we can, and the amount that it aligns with our mission and vision. So
The problem is, I don't think there are many projects that we can emulate. I don't think people have solved the utility issue outside of network tokens. The DAOs that I've seen have very little utility for their token. Most of it's based off of speculation. And so when it comes to generating, like having a metric for success, I look at the TE Academy. I mean, they have around a little bit over 2,000 people who are about to take this TE fundamentals course. That is 2,000 token engineers being trained into the space. And we were a part of that. And I think that is a huge accomplishment that we can lean into and have a lot of human capital to drive a lot of the initiatives that we want to see. And so I think it takes time, honestly. I just think, the timeline that we all had in our head is a lot longer than we expected. And so I think that's something that we have to take into consideration.
Well, and you can think that gravity is a cultural outgrowth of that too, right? But I'm just suggesting that we actually pay a little more attention to the gravity side of the picture. It's a conflict if we forgot that maybe there could be a bear market and people would evacuate our group. Do you know what I'm saying? Or they would overly switch from being concerned with the culture to suddenly being concerned with having a job in token engineering specifically, right? So sorry, I think I interrupted.
Finally, I would say that if there's a such thing as a golden bullet, think in terms of 007 Golden Gun, right? If there's a thing as a golden bullet to like assassinate financial scarcity, I think it would be a grant from the Ethereum Foundation. Like I just saw a tweet. From Vitalik saying that he's going to donate the proceeding from his next book, which compiles a lot of articles regarding proof of stake. That he's going to donate them to Gitcoin, as if Gitcoin needed more money. Why don't he donates it to us? I mean, honestly, I regret not just like trying to being in front of Vitalik in East Mexico and just persuading him, or just coming up with a performance, some type of spoken word poem, or some sort of cry for battle, and just making him attentive to our needs, because we are certainly paving the road for a lot of protocols to come, and I think we could use more help from.
I'm conflicted with what you say, man.
Go ahead.
Because shouldn't we, like, it delays the inevitable, right? To get a grant from the Ethereum Foundation, like a massive grant to basically leech off of. If the underlying system that we have built is a strainer, right?
That's
like,
true.
We need a bowl, not a strainer.
Or it could give us more time to address the problem. I certainly agree with you, Rex, and with Durgadas in that the problem is structural. But as we're solving the problem, at the same time, like, we are preventing ourselves from having the talent or the capabilities to better address the problem. So it's like a vicious cycle in a way. Like it's intricate in that sense.
Yeah.
So I want to challenge that notion, just because of the fact that this is where we fail to think as a commons. We think of ourselves as an organization and not as a commons. And I think this is the biggest kind of divergent mindset that we've had so far. Like TE Academy may be getting an Ethereum Foundation grant very soon, and I think that would be huge. Now, if they do, that's wonderful, and that's part of the bigger picture of like what our mission is to advance token engineering, and having these vehicles that we've already created are setting a good infrastructure. But thinking of ourselves as like this token economy, we have to have this kind of rush, this demand for TEC tokens immediately as being like the priority or like the goal of everything we're doing. I think is a very false thing. I don't think we need the TEC token right now, immediately. And but I do think that the economic model it works. It's been shown to work. We have to create utility in aggregate though, and that's a longer time horizon.
Let's follow that logic and
Yep.
and think like a commons. I would like to see what Ostrom found out when she went to communities, and when these communities found out that the resource that they were commenting around was becoming depleted. What did they do in terms of what that implied to the people who were benefiting from that resource, maybe selling a product or a service by using that resource? What did they do to allay the decrease in income from those people? So I agree. Let's think like a commons. What have these people? I mean, certainly not a new type of organization. We can just look at the past and see what they did, right? So I'd be interested in seeing if there's research on that.
I think there's the big difference between Ostrom's CPR settings, like the common pool resources that she studied, and the one that we have created here in the Token Engineering Commons, is the fact that the provision of goods that were made from those commons settings or environments were private goods, things that could be sold to the public for money, and I think that is a huge difference to where we're creating a public good where it is commonly owned by everyone. And so there's not a lot of return on that public good, and that should be expected in the short term. And I don't think that's kind of, I don't think that's antithetical to what Ostrom had observed and realized. Like, they had fisheries, they had water. These are things that were provided, but they were paid for by the public. Now, we don't have that interface where the public is paying for token engineering services because we're offering it as an open source public good. And that there's a huge difference between those two. And so the economy that works around that is going to work a lot differently than the ones that she observed. And so that would be my only comment on that. Yeah.
I'll do more research on that. See if, yeah.
I have a question.
Sorry, I was talking, but I was on mute. I was going to say, is that if the Token Engineering Academy is getting an Ethereum grant, doesn't that mean that the Token Engineering Commons is getting an Ethereum grant, not the Token Engineering Academy? They're not separate things.
They are.
They are.
So just
Are
as
they?
Gravity is a
And if
separate,
so, why?
separate from TEC.
No,
I mean,
you guys are
because they're-
still funding us. We're not. We're not separate from you at all. And we're trying to figure out ways to give back.
But
related to that, I also wanted to ask, like, to add to what Andriguez is saying. Like, I have this question of what would prevent the Token Engineering Academy to create their own token at some point if they decided to and use that instead of the TEC token? Is there like a reason that just like
they can
with us or something?
We want to encourage them to incorporate the TEC token. That would be ideal. But as part of like Ostrom's principles, for example, we do not restrict anybody's right to organize. And so if Gravity wants to start their own token, they can start their own token, and that's fine. And maybe we can find utility within those organizations, maybe as a governance token for these organizations later on. But if they want to use their own token, they can. I think it's really harsh. Like it's not great for the TEC utility. If they do, I think it would be best if Gravity and TEC incorporated, or T Academy incorporated the TEC token in some way. But that doesn't mean they have to. I think we have to respect the rights of each of these groups to run how they wish to run. And at the end of the day, we're here to cultivate these types of groups to become successful. That is the ultimate mission of what we're trying to accomplish here. And I think losing sight of that for the sake of how can we generate the most value to our TEC token is the wrong mindset, to be honest with you. And I know I might be in the minority for that.
Well, I agree. I just think that then we should also, I guess, think about that scenario too, right? Like, be prepared for the TEC, how it's going to look like if these projects decide to go in their own way, right? Like, what's going to happen with the TEC? So just like what we were discussing before about maybe like in the past should have been thought about how are we going to get ready for a bear market. maybe it's kind of like the same thing, right? How do we think on a scenario where the projects that we fund, they decide just not to use the TEC token just for whatever reasons, right? Just so.
And
Thanks for
in
the
an
leg up.
ideal world,
See
that's
you later. you
yeah.
know.
No, but that
No
in an
gratitude,
ideal
no tribute.
situation, that's the way we would work. Like in
Right.
the ideal, like that is the commons. Like we
Right.
want to be able to fund these projects that become these mega things and become the shelling point and create these foundations for these projects. And if we can do that, that's then we succeeded. But I think that's contrary to what people have imagined when they say, okay, I'm working for the token engineering commons and our goal is to make money. And that is not the case here. We want to
but the goal is to
facilitate
sustain the commons. Like
exactly, and I think we're
at the
doing
moment,
that.
the problem I'm seeing, the biggest problem I'm seeing is that essentially, at least to me, and maybe it's oversimplifying, but the only real idea for revenue generation that we have, we've essentially decided to pause that and just be completely behest to whatever the TEA wants to do with their revenue generation mechanism, and trying to just wait on them with no data in sight, in order to then begin to create a mechanism by which we can bring token engineers and the demand and supply of token engineers together. And it feels to me like that's completely counterproductive, and that we do need to respect the TEA, but the TEA also needs to respect us.
And
And
they do,
I feel
but I
like by
think that
just basically waiting on them to be, because they have something else going on, and not, rather than us kind of beginning to build out this process and then get their consensus whenever they have time, be a better idea. I got lost in the trail of thought.
no, yeah, I get what you're saying, but this comes back to this concept of like we're thinking of ourselves as an organization when we should be thinking of ourselves as a commons. And while I agree with you that I would like to see reciprocation from these organizations, and I do believe we will. I just think it's going to take time because they need to become self-sustainable, and then we're going to have that feedback in the long term.
I commend you for your nobility, but I don't think we're being reciprocated in the same way. And rather than being a level commons, we're becoming subject to a different organization.
But we don't own the TE Academy. You know what I'm saying? Like we this is a group of people who got a grant from us and have created a product for themselves. And that's exactly what we set out to do in our mission. And,
of course, but now we're waiting on them to build a system to bring token engineers together.
Sorry, guys, I gotta go.
Because they want to implement that as a result of their course, right? Rather than us leveraging that, and we are strangling ourselves in the hopes that if we wait for them, then the result for us will be just as positive in future, when in fact we shouldn't be doing that at all. We should try and begin to build out the basics with their help and with their contribution wherever they are able to.
And you're not alone in thinking this, and so I don't want you to feel like you are, because this has been the consensus for a while, or like at least for a month now. And I think there's a lot of tension and between the TE Academy and the TEC at the moment. But I don't think it's something that is going to prevent us from moving forward. I think it might take some time for the TE fundamentals to launch, but after that, I think we'll have a better collaboration set up for us, because I do think it is a priority.
To add on to this, like I would throw like another question in terms of this relationship with the academy, and in regards with the token engineering request board that has been put like on hold, like for because of this. Like the question would be like, what would prevent also like for the academy to, after they launch their course, what would they prevent for them to launch the token engineering request board themselves, right, without the help of the TEC? I guess that again, I totally get you, Nate. Like it wouldn't be ideal, and I don't think that would happen, right? But at the same time, there are no guarantees, right? Like if they are like their own organization, for what it sounds, they are thinking on their own, for their own like benefit on what is actually working for them. Like how do we know what would be the value that the TEC could provide to them, let's say for this specific project, that they could not just like achieve by themselves, right? Like what would be that extra value that they would be looking for in a partnership with the TEC to get this service up and running, right? So I don't know, that's just a question.
Exactly. That was just the question I wanted to bring up. I think this brings up a great question for us, that what is the incentive and the value again we provide to the ecosystem, that what's the reason that DAOs relate to one another, right? There should be a reason why they want to relate, why they want to build partnerships. There's incentives on both sides, and this doesn't have to be an external DAO. It can be something, an initiative that initially started within TEC and then became independent. But I think the like incentive and the value both ways should always be there, because otherwise we don't have any kind of any kind of agreement mechanisms that saying that, okay, you started within our organization and then you have to stick with us, or like kind of like give back this and that. It's not in our value system at all. But since it's not in our value system, again, I think it again, I think pushes us to think further and think in the future and really realize, okay, now we want to be the Shelling point and we want to provide a lot of this support to new emerging DAOs and other projects. And how do we make sure that our TC as a partner to them will always be valuable? Like, how do we make sure that they don't just leave us and go away? And again, like I don't say this in the way that, okay, we don't want them to go away, we don't want them to become independent. No, that's not what I mean. But it just again brings another deeper question of utility and value, and like our own presence and identity in the ecosystem that will want other DAOs to relate to us. If that makes sense. So yeah, definitely.
So I have to get off, but I just wanted to add, and I thank you for that comment. If you guys want to keep talking about this, please do. I would love to keep this conversation. Maybe we make this part of the Stewards Council, and possibly get some people from the TE Academy in here. And so what I just want to add at the end of this is that, we're a nonprofit. We're the equivalent to a nonprofit organization. And the way we succeed in economically is the give back aspect of it. When we have the TE Academy, we have Gravity, and they're proliferating through DAOs, and they're funded, bringing talent to new projects. The more things like we create, the more impact that we have through these organizations that we're funding, we will see that return. But it does take a long time. It's based off of the impact that we have in the organizations that we fund and help facilitate in the space. And I think having that type of mindset is really important, because I don't think there's another organization that is like us. I think we are one of a kind in that realm. And so I just think it takes a different attitude towards the typical Web3 DAO organization that we typically see, who are, largely sustained off of speculation. And to be honest with you, those models will not last. And so I just want to add that point, but I would love for you guys to keep the conversation going, and maybe we'll definitely make this part of the Stewards Council meeting, and I'll get Angela and some of the TEA folks in here. and we can have a conversation about it, because I do think it's really, really important. So I just want to say thank you guys, and I have to get into another meeting that I'm late for, but appreciate
Thank
everybody.
you, Nate.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you,
For
Nate.
2 hours, 10 minutes. Crazy. Okay,
That's
guys, I need to go too, I
okay.
think, but oh, sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
I don't know. No, that's fine.
You want to keep it going another hour?
Yeah, I think I also gotta go, guys. But I think I really like these kind of conversations, because like they are not like as structured, and things flow, and people are able to talk, and at the same time like limit